I were challenged with Martha's note cards, multiple note cards. Thank goodness Deli has them still all semi-rubber banded together and the rubber bands are starting to disintegrate. So we plugged our way through, but we were able to find an article that she had written. I don't know if it was ever published or not. I think it would be delightful for the newsletter in December. But do we want, I don't have to share this. It's fairly lengthy. If you want to share first, what would you like to do?
For what?
Christmas in July, sharing your family stories.
Let's hear Martha's.
Yes.
I'd like to hear.
You want to hear Martha first?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Gotta wear my glasses, guys. My apologies.
Maybe real short.
Christmas in Crawfordsville, 1879. The Montgomery County Historical Society began planning for a Victorian Christmas open house last June. While researching local newspapers of December 1879, the following items were found. They represent a picture for contemporaries of how our town celebrated Christmas in 1879. The 25th of December in 1879 fell on Thursday. Business houses were open and the Crawfordsville Star published its regular edition on that day, but the barbershops closed during the afternoon hours, and one can only wonder if Joe Fisher's bathrooms at the courthouse remained open to satisfy members of the community who wished to follow Fisher's advice about, quote, being clean for Christmas, unquote. So it gets better. Further inducement is suggested by his advertisement, which stressed, quote, the clean tubs and clean towels available at his public baths, unquote. Late shoppers looking for gifts at greatly reduced prices and merchants were serenaded by the Frank Wilhite Cornet Band, their sweet melodies lading the frosty air. We know that the post office was busy, for in the lobby there, the purest of sugar candies could be purchased by the pound, bushel, or barrel. Sign me up. I'm telling you guys, this is fabulous. The rush to buy toy pistols, torpedoes, and firecrackers continued unabated at the post office throughout the week before Christmas, and the merchants noted via the Star that the, quote, holiday trade had been heavier than ever, unquote. A reporter for the Saturday Evening Journal thought that things were looking up for the holiday season because they had seen an increase in the number of marriages. I don't know the connection, but that's okay. The Sunday before Christmas, a rainstorm had sent the creek booming along. All fordable crossings were dangerously high, and the 2-inch covering of ice at Sperry's Dam washed downstream. Such weather meant transportation difficulties. The mud made carriage traffic difficult, and of course the sleighs sat in the stables awaiting a white ground cover. No doubt Tinsley's and Martin's advertisements for sleigh bells of all kinds and skates in all sizes and sleds for boys and girls brought in few customers. Their competitor, S.H. Gregg, probably enjoyed more trade that last week before Christmas because he offered gifts of unbreakable toys, which don't exist. Perhaps the adult conversation was most frequently involved about the latest technology developments. Thomas Edison's electric light bulb was to be tested on New Year's Eve at Menlo Park. The Journal announced that a company of Cincinnati capitalists had negotiated with Edison's agents for the use of the light in that city on the condition that the trial was successful. Then our own journalist added that the time is not far off when the use of the electric light would be as universal as coal oil. Skeptics had only to wait for a year by December of 1880 when the front page of the Star carried news that gas stocks were still depressing and shares in Edison's new invention rising from $33 to $4,000 each.
Put it
I
back.
can't make this up, people.
Put
It is
back.
rumored that the Rothschilds have a controlling interest in the enterprise. Another invention probably claimed more attention in 1879, however. A telephone exchange was just around the corner for Crawfordsville. Social events included the annual masked ball that was held on December 11th at the Opera House, the site of the present Schlote furniture store. Guests and their choices of dress received moralistic evaluation after the event. The Star reported that not one costume had been disgusting or offensive. Colonel Blair, according to the Journal of December 27th, had hosted a Mother Goose entertainment for the children of his neighborhood. The Blair's Christmas tree had been a feature of the party, which added much enjoyment for the little ones as well as their elders. Prior to 1879, only the churches erected Christmas trees. Families of the community were invited to bring their presents to the church where their gifts could be distributed. Of course, Santa Claus appeared in a program by the Sunday school children to be expected. The Methodist Episcopal Church, for the Christmas of 1879, added the attraction of a doll display in the basement, what guests could enjoy after the program upstairs. The Journal of December 27, 1879, listed families who had put up Christmas trees scandalously in their own homes. The Greggs, the Pauls, the Fishers, the Kelseys, the Mahorneys, who lived northeast of Ladoga, Dr. Duncan, and the Kaufmans. There were probably other trees of which this reporter had not heard, for Colonel Blair's tree was not mentioned. And one innovation occurred in Darlington, a Jacob's ladder from which the presents were hung. But this news item fails to name the Sunday school or home where it had been made. The Journal reported on December 27th, one of the season's most unusual parties. Dr. Duncan, whose home stood at the southeast corner of Washington and Jefferson, quote, dispatched a messenger to the wilderness and had an evergreen brought before him. He made a Christmas tree and put upon it presents for his friends and presents for their friends. And he did more. He impersonated Santa Claus and recited a precious bit of poetry for the occasion entitled Der Little Fur Kop. And so well did he speak that his fame spread like a fire alarm. A few gentlemen immediately waiting upon him invited him to repeat the entertainment at the elegant mansion of Zach Mahorney, where the branches of the Christmas tree were bending with presents for loved one and a larger audience was present, unquote. Joe Taylor offered cut trees for sale at his grocery and bakery, and this was undoubtedly the first such enterprise here in Crawfordsville. A.J. Royalty was prepared to furnish Christmas trees for everyone from his nursery. Those interested were advised to leave their orders at Cox's greenhouse. Whether these trees were intended for future planting or cut for customers is not included in the information. Professional dramatic offerings lighted up the holiday fair. The Star announced that Frederick Pauling was to appear on Friday evening the 26th at the Opera House in Hamlet. He was to change his role for Saturday evening when The Fool's Revenge, how Christmassy is that, was to be staged by a traveling company. On the 16th, an unusual exhibit opened to the public in Elston Hall. Items from General Wallace's travel were to be on display. The Lane's cup and saucer, belonging originally to George Washington, was to be shown, and some of Mrs. William Brush's beautiful needlework.
The
Charles
Washington saucer is still in Lake Place.
Is it still
Yes.
there? That's fabulous, because I don't recognize, I'm sure Lou Wallace has these items from the travels. All right. Charles Travis and Mrs. Maurice Thompson were offering some of their paintings, and the booths and tables had been arranged attractively to exhibit many rare, ancient, and valuable artifacts. Admission was 10 cents. The corner bookstore held its annual holiday reception for Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. Located at the southwest corner of Washington and Main, the Old Reliable Bookstore offered toys, dolls, books, and an endless stock of mantel ornaments. It was owned by Robinson and Wallace, according to ads of 1879. Their competitors, Dickey and Brewer, operated their business east of the courthouse. Their ads disclosed a stock which included fine steel engravings, Japanese prints, 10 sets of the Waverley novels, 13 sets of Dickens' complete works, the finest lines of Bibles, histories, books of travel, illustrated picture and scrapbooks, everything from Macaulay's England to Gibbon's Rome. No Indianapolis house can show as choice a line of Shakespeare, 14 varieties, as Dickey and Brewer had to sell in 1879. When it came to shopping for the exotic foods of the season, the housewives went to Dennis and Shuey's for fresh California fruit. Candies at Joe Taylor's 15 cents a pound, and foreign nuts were 20 cents a pound. Cash Fries had choice eating apples and the best tub of oysters in the city. Turkeys and geese were available at the Guthrie Brother Butcher Shop. Hot breads could be delivered to your home before breakfast any morning. Just leave your orders at Joe Taylor's Bakery. So, just a little snapshot.
That's pretty cool.
Isn't it? I couldn't believe it. Deli and I were digging through this, and I'm like, has this ever been published? She goes, well, I don't think so. But I thought it was, I don't recognize a lot of these places in town. I think I know where I know where Schlott's was.
It would be nice if you would share a copy of that with Lane Place, because I have transcribed several interviews that Martha Cantrell did, and they're putting them in an online package so that eventually they will be shared on the website.
We can do that. Deli, I can, if that's okay with you, because it's not, I don't know that it's ever been copyrighted. I don't know that it's ever been
No, it's in her manuscripts. Yeah, I haven't seen it in the books that we have upstairs.
Because I've got some stuff in yours too.
Martha's, oh
Yeah,
yeah, you've got a
because
ton of stuff.
Yeah, because of those.
And I have the Bethel deed. Mm-hmm. I love you. Jennifer Bentley found it. I just picked it up before I came here. I have the Bethel deed.
I've been looking for years.
I know. I have it. Okay, so who wants to follow that?
Oh, nobody.
I can tell an Easter story. I have back in the 1960s, my brother was in constant search for black, colored dolls.
Oh
Because they were rare. And so she found some over in Indianapolis that were balking dolls. They stood about this tall. And you put, the arms came up and they go like this, Well, my dad and my Aunt Maxine had this Christmas feud where they trade the same fruitcake. Back and forth. Each Christmas, each would give the exact, never been eaten, what fruitcake in it. But, it was wrapped so raggedy, but it would be up at the chocolate plus all year till Christmas time so Uncle Murray he liked to drink. He was bringing the fruitcake over for Christmas Eve for Daddy to get. And when he came in, he saw the doll standing there and thought it was us girls. So he's having a conversation with the gift scoop, which Mom didn't wrap one gift. And so the three dolls were standing up against the wall. And he had a conversation. He was saying, why aren't these babies talking back, saying anything to me? And my mom's cracking up so she can't talk. And he said, well, you're not talking either. I'll just go home. And he took
That fruit cake.
I was 6 at that time. And they traded until I graduated high school, at least. You know, because that's when I left the house. And so they couldn't still, it was still around. They traded it and talked about each other all year for doing that. I mean, it was a love-hate thing. So yes.
Vicki, tell us your name.
Oh, my name is Victoria Elaine Hyde Elmore Hudson Swisher.
Thank you. Okay, who's next?
Do you want to hear my Easter story?
No, we want Christmas.
I'm ready.
Diane?
I was familiar with the kind of fruitcake you're talking about, which were annual gifts to my grandmother. But my father took a fruitcake recipe, added chocolate to the cake batter, and turned out a really good edible chocolate fruitcake that I make every year.
Oh, nice! Hey, edible fruitcake, that's an oxymoron. Really? Chocolate kills any taste.
It's a chocolate batter with fruitcake fruit in it.
My sister used to make me a fruitcake every Christmas. I love fruitcake.
And they still make them.
Yeah, but my sister doesn't. She died.
Oh.
Well, they also make the kind you're talking about, which in my mind are sawdust and glue.
Yeah, that's what it was. I mean, it was petrified. It was so, you know.
Well, even the first year, it probably was about.
Yes, and I don't want that old thing, and then put it in the closet to make sure that when, you know, it was.
And Ants didn't come get it? Of course, why would Ants get it?
Ants didn't even want that.
Well, I can't bring the fruitcake to our Christmas meeting because it has to cure a month after you make it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the rum.
I thought rum killed it.
Well, there's no alcohol in my fruit recipe.
Chocolate's better.
And I make it on Thanksgiving,
So it's got a
usually. And then we meet close after Thanksgiving rather than the end of the month, so
So Shannon.
maybe I can bring it to the January meeting.
Yeah.
Jake, that would be perfect.
Okay, who's next?
Well, my sister had 3 boys and a girl. And they were all close in age. And we'd have Christmas all together. And my brother would come in late dressed as Santa Claus. And this one year when he came in like that, the 3 little boys was absolutely scared to death of Santa Claus, and they all screamed, hollered, and yelled, and run to the bedroom and covered up.
He has that effect. Deli, what's yours?
What's mine? I guess spent a whole day decorating a Christmas tree. And my grandma's, they get such a big tree. You'd go out and cut it down, take it through the front door. And they had one of those houses that had the front door and a door into the bedroom. You had to do it this way to get the tree in. And then it was all the way to the ceiling, it was 10-foot ceiling. And we had to decorate it. And my grandma liked the icicles. And we had to put that on the whole tree. Well, my brother, he'd take clumps and he'd just throw them up there. Now I'd take them and do them, you know. So one side of the tree was one way and one side the other way. But then it'd take all day because then she had to light, we'd have popcorn, but then we had beads in the windows. They had a big bay window and stuff. It'd take all day and we hot dogs, cook hot dogs in the fireplace and stuff like that. And then we it was bad once it was over, you took it all down. Grandma wanted to save those icicles for next year. So of course my side of the tree went nice because I could take them down. My brothers, we had to untangle them and all that. Yep. So.
Were those icicles made out of foil?
Yep.
Yeah, when I was a kid, they were foil and they'd break at the drop of a pin.
The only thing I did bad that one year, my grandma had she was old enough to be my great grandma. So the decorations, some were very old, and one was of a brick chimney.
We didn't sweep them.
It was her favorite thing, and I broke it.
Oh.
It felt so bad. She said, "That's okay." But we have big boxes of decorations like this big. We'd have like 5 of those Dad would bring from upstairs. And then every year, Grandpa would always have to have 2 more strings of lights. And their house didn't have much electricity, but he liked to put lights, so they put lights. They used to, I guess in the old days, they used to put candles on a little stand. Well, I found out why they never had candles on ours. Because my great grandmother had died in a fire.
Oh.
Kerosene fire. No, it wasn't for Christmas candles, but that's why they didn't allow it after that, because they didn't want any chance of fire in the house. But, yeah, but it took me, till after I was married and the kids were probably 5 years old, and we went to my great aunt. And she said something about, well, we never could have candles on because Mom was burning. And I just thought she died of natural causes. Nope.
Fire's pretty natural.
So that's my story. Andrew, you got a story?
I really don't.
Okay.
Well, I'll finish it off with humor because, well, you know my family. We lived in Alabama when I was young, and my mom was not very healthy. She would spend from December through about January, from the time I was about 4 until the time I was 12. She was in the hospital during Christmas. It was just, I mean, it was manic depressive, and they didn't know how to treat it at that time. So, at any rate, my grandparents, my mom's parents, would come down to Alabama and stay with me when Mom was in the hospital. Well, my dad's kind of got a warped sense of humor, and my grandfather went right along with him. So my grandparents would take my parents' bed to sleep in, and when my dad would get home, he would sleep on the floor in the living room. So I was probably 6 or 7, and my dad and Grandpa concocted a whopper. Oh my gosh, Shannon Gale, Santa Claus tripped over your dad last night when he was coming in the front door because we didn't have a chimney. Well, I figured that out. I was, 5 or 6. And they just embellished this story. And so what did idiot Shannon do? I went back to school the first day and told all my friends that Santa Claus tripped over my dad. And that he and my grandpa and my dad sat and drank milk and cookies in front of our Christmas tree. And they just go, and my teacher is like, what in the world are your parents doing? About 4 years later, I figured out I'm a loser. I'm a loser. Luckily, we had moved. Actually, no, we were still in Alabama when I figured out there was no Santa Claus. So not to be outdone, my son was a turd, as those of you who know my son. He's a bit of a turkey. So he was being really honoring. He was 7 or 8 years old. So remember when CBS used to have the eye on all their programming at the bottom corner? So my husband, to continue the Sullivan, Hudson, Shepherd tradition, said, Tyler, Andrew, do you see that eye in the corner of the TV? And I knew where he was going with this. Yeah, that's Santa Claus. He's got a camera. He is watching every move you make. And being 7, really? Yep. And we're going to watch this channel every day until Christmas. So he'd come flying around the corner with his baseball bat, which he liked to whack things with, and he'd look up in the corner. We'd have Channel 8 on purpose, and he'd look at that, he'd put that bat down, and he'd just walk in the kitchen. So sure enough, there was one day we didn't have it on, and he took his baseball bat and decided that the ornaments were baseballs. So we heard a couple shatters, and we come around the corner. He's taking baseball practice at these ornaments. So we flipped it on Channel 8, and sure enough, there it was. To this day, that child will not watch Channel 8 if that eyeball was on there. That boy is 28 years old. He still hates Doug and I. He still hates Doug and I for that. But by golly, it saved some things from being broken in the Hudson household. He was a turd, of course, understand.
Now, will he be upset about this?
Don't care. I gave birth, by golly, gives us, yes, it gives us privileges. Well, after a while, and of course my dad and grandpa, really, when grandpa was in the hospital and not doing well prior to his death, he was still giggling about the fact that Shana went and told all of her friends at A.C. Moore Elementary School in Atmore, Alabama, that Santa Claus tripped over her dad. Those two just suckered. I mean, I felt like I was a fish on a reel. I had swallowed hook, line, and sinker, and I told all my friends. If you knew my dad, you'd understand.
I had 7 children. And so being a working mom, we kind of overdo it for the holidays. That's what my mom did, because you can't be there, you can't be room mother and that kind of thing. So the mommy guilt's extra heavy. So I had a bad habit of when I bought something for the Christmas, I couldn't wait till Christmas. I want to give it to him right away. It drove my husband nuts to the point where he refused to take me shopping until Christmas Eve. Imagine shopping for all 7 kids in one night. The stores closed at 6. I've got my list together, and my rule was to spend the exact amount on everybody. No present counting, because you don't know how much it costs. If I catch you counting, you got to give it up. And I was serious. So my worst Christmas was running into the same couples over and over again, and then forgetting to buy milk for breakfast. I take the gifts, bought so many gifts, I had to take them home, hiding them from the kids because, they were home and threatened them with death. And I said that I had invisible strings across everything, so until if they crossed the threshold, I would know it and an alarm would go off, and that gift they would not get. I had them go. But serious business, even the gifts that my parents would send and everything, I was not allowed to touch until Christmas Eve, because as I would open them and play with them, and then put them away to a place, and find them 2 years later. So he said, no shopping until Christmas Eve. Yeah, that was my torture.
Did he have to wrap them all?
No, I wrapped them up. Sometimes I wouldn't get them all wrapped. Just roll the bag up, staple shut, and put a bow on top. But it's amazing as grown women, and my trees were late because I got, one time it was like magic because there'd be no gifts when they went to bed, and and so as grown-ups, each one of my daughters, they picked up my, Christmas, my habit, the Christmas thing, and so I'm like, say, Mom, how did you do that? How did you make the gifts, do it? I said, well, I never went to bed. I didn't go to bed, and be sure to take pictures for y'all, tore up the tree. And then I'd have it blocked off so they couldn't peek down the stairs. So the big reveal, take the curtain down and they just be ooh ah. And so that's what they try to do. And that's the tradition that they do with their children. So that, that's cool.
I'm done at Halloween. I'm done Christmas shopping at Halloween.
I can't speak. I have to reshop.
Yes, you will.
Okay, any other stories?
No, I think that's it. The ones I can tell.
All right, Deli, we're good on time. Well, if there's nothing else, if you would like to stick around and eat more food, please do. If you want to giggle a little bit more, you're more than welcome to do that as well. But thank you for indulging Christmas in July, because December just was not a happy time in Montgomery County.